Grant Mercer clicks the first yellow block and turns it gray. Denied, the screen says. He clicks 8 more while 12 people sit around the Monday service meeting with their coffee and steel-toed boots. 9 days disappear from my expense report, one after another, until the amount owed to me drops by $873. Grant lifts my receipt envelope between 2 fingers. No receipts, no per diem. I worked every assigned shift. Then documenting what you spent should have been easy. A few heads lower. Ben Shaw studies the seam of his paper cup. On the wall behind Grant, the projected report shows Mesa Crown beverages, 9 dates, and a row of zeros. 4 days ago, at Mesa Crown's security desk, I signed out of the customer's blue site log after my 9th shift. Arrival time, departure time, work area, permit number, every line initialed by their operations manager. Grant was the one who sent me there. So why is he making a show of pretending I never went? The conference room smells like wet jackets and the cinnamon gum our dispatcher chews when she's trying not to smoke. Grant sets my envelope down, squares it with the edge of the table, and moves to Ben's report. Hotel receipt, fuel receipts, meals, he says approvingly. This is how a field professional closes a job. Ben's ears go red. He had spent 3 days in Reno replacing a failed touchscreen and had come home with enough paper to reconstruct every sandwich. Grant approves his full report in 2 clicks. I keep my hands under the table. There is yellow wax under my right thumbnail from the grease pencil tied to Mesa Crown's logbook. I've scrubbed twice, and it still hasn't come out. Next item, Grant says. Our dispatcher, Darlene, clears her throat and brings up the schedule. She's old enough to have stopped being impressed by men who control spreadsheets, but she is also 3 years from retirement and knows exactly when not to volunteer for a collision. Lena, you're on the Laurel Springs startup next Monday, she says. Ben, warranty call in Sparks. Howard, you're... Actually, Grant says, put Ben on Laurel Springs. Darlene looks at him over her glasses. Ben's never commissioned that controller. He'll learn. The room gets quieter than it was during the denial. Laurel Springs is a clean 6-day job with a decent hotel and predictable overtime. I had been preparing for it for a month. I built the input-output checklist. I found the mismatch between the customer's power drawings and ours, before anybody shipped a cabinet that would have blown a breaker. Darlene's fingers hover above her keyboard. And Lena, she asks. Bench support. We have returned drives stacking up. Grant does not look at me when he says it. By 10:15, I'm in the women's room pressing cold water against the back of my neck. One of the fluorescent tubes flickers with the steady rhythm of a bad relay. I count the pulses because counting is safer than walking into Grant's office angry. My phone buzzes. Rosa has sent me a picture of the grocery list taped to our refrigerator. You ate my good olives, she writes. I type. Evidence is circumstantial. The 3 dots appear immediately. Your pit is in the jar. I laugh once, which comes out closer to a cough. Rosa has let me live in her spare room for 11 months and has never once called it helping me get back on my feet. She calls it our highly selective residential partnership. I pay half the utilities, fix anything with wires, and apparently leave olive pits at crime scenes. I put my phone away and look at myself in the mirror. I am still wearing the navy Hartwell polo I washed in the hotel sink 2 nights ago because the trip ran 4 days longer than planned. 9 days earlier, the Mesa Crown plant had appeared at the end of a highway so straight it made distance feel fake. Silver roofs shimmered above beige scrub. The company made flavored sparkling water in cans, which meant most of the building smelled faintly of hot aluminum and artificial lime. I arrived at 5:42 in the morning with a tool case in one hand and a gas station coffee in the other. The security guard pushed a blue waterproof binder toward me through the slot beneath his window. A stubby yellow grease pencil was tied to it with black cord. Contractors sign in, sign out, he said. Print so somebody can read it during an evacuation. The pencil dragged across the page like a crayon. I wrote, Lena Ortiz, Hartwell Process Controls, wash water recovery, then added the permit number from my email. The guard turned the binder around. You forgot sponsor. I don't have one. Then you don't have a plant. A woman behind me said, put Marisol Vega. She wore a white hard hat with Monsieur Vega printed across the front in block letters. There was a coffee stain on one sleeve of her work shirt and a radio clipped high on her shoulder. I'm the operations manager, she said, and if Hartwell sent you alone, I'm guessing you're either very good or very unpopular. Those aren't mutually exclusive. The guard made a sound into his mustache. Marisol's mouth twitched. The washwater system occupied a tiled mechanical room behind Lean 4. It was designed to catch final rinse water from Mesa Crown's can washers, filter out aluminum dust and cleaning residue, then reuse the water for the first rinse cycle. When it worked, it saved the plant thousands of gallons each shift. When it did not, the recovery tank filled with cloudy water and dumped it down the drain. Hartwell had built the control cabinet, programmed the sequence, and supplied 2 stainless modulating valves that were supposed to balance flow through the filter banks. The valves on the pipe were 3 inches. The openings waiting for them were 4. Marisol stood beside me while I held the packing slip against the casting number. Tell me I'm reading that wrong, she said. You're reading it perfectly. That's rarely good news. I photographed the valve tags, the flanges, and the purchase order label. Then I called Grant. He answered on the second ring. How's my favorite troubleshooter? We shipped 3-inch valves for a 4-inch line. A pause. Not long enough to be surprised. Can the plant adapt the piping? They can, but the reducers will change the velocity through the valve. Our control calculation assumes the full bore. You can retune the loop. The valve's maximum flow is still wrong. You haven't even powered the cabinet yet. I don't need power to measure a pipe. His voice changed. It did not get louder. Grant rarely got loud. He became gentler when he wanted resistance to feel childish. Lena, Mesa Crown has an executive tour next week. Marisol is under pressure. I'm under pressure. And you're standing there with the ability to move this forward. Don't become the person explaining why we lost 2 days over a flange. Behind me, Marisol had politely walked away. She was near enough to hear my tone, but not his words. What do you want me to do? I asked. Get their maintenance shop to fabricate reducers. Commission everything you can. I'll expedite the correct valves. What's the delivery? I'll call you back. He did call back 40 minutes later with an actual plan. A distributor in Salt Lake City had the right valve bodies, but not our specified actuators. Grant found compatible actuators in Boise and arranged for both shipments to reach Mesa Crown by the 4th morning. That was what made Grant difficult to dismiss as a fool. He could hear 3 bad options and assemble a 4th before most people finished complaining. He remembered model numbers, freight routes, and which customers needed reassurance versus blunt facts. When he used that ability for you, it felt like being pulled out of deep water. Use the undersized valves for dry testing, he told me. Have maintenance build temporary spools. We'll swap the bodies on day 4 and still finish in 5. It was aggressive, but possible. For the first 2 days, Marisol assigned a maintenance mechanic named Earl Dugan to help me. Earl had forearms like firewood and the delicate touch of a watchmaker. He could cut stainless tubing so cleanly it barely needed deburring, but he refused to trust any screen that displayed more than 3 colors. Computers should look worried when something's wrong, he said, peering at my control panel. All these colors look festive. Red is worried. Red is also Christmas. By the end of the first shift, we had the temporary spools installed and the cabinet powered. By the second, I had mapped 27 inputs, corrected 4 mislabeled terminal wires, and found that the recovery tank's high-level switch had been mounted upside down. Every morning, I signed the blue log with the yellow pencil. Every evening, I signed out. The cord was barely long enough for a comfortable grip, so I had to bend over the security desk like I was signing a confession. On the 3rd morning, the guard pushed the binder toward me before I showed my badge. "Your handwriting's improving," he said. "My standards are declining." He tapped the sponsor column. "Ms. Vega wants your permit number on every entry now." It seemed fussy until that afternoon when a sanitation supervisor tried to start an automated cleaning cycle while Earl and I had a filter housing open. The control room stopped the cycle because my permit was still active. Marisol arrived 2 minutes later with her radio in one hand and an expression that made a grown supervisor apologize before she asked a question. Afterward, she initialed my log entry herself. "Paper beats memory," she said, usually because paper doesn't get promoted. She looked at me for a second, then laughed hard enough to cough. The correct valve bodies arrived on the 4th day. The actuators did not. Grant spent half that afternoon tracing the shipment and discovered it had been routed to a warehouse in Oregon. He called me at 4:50 when I had already been on site 11 hours. They can get them to Mesa Crown tomorrow evening. That puts installation on day 6. You can stay. It was not phrased as a question. "My hotel reservation ends tomorrow." "Extend it. We'll sort the paperwork when you're back." "My travel card still hasn't arrived." "Use your personal card." "I've already used it for the room deposit, meals, and fuel." "You're getting per diem, Lena. That's what per diem is for." I wrote those words in my notebook, not because I expected to need them, but because I write down instructions that change money or safety. Grant had taught me that during my first year in the field. He also taught me never to let a customer hear uncertainty in my voice. So I extended the room. By day 6, the skin beside my thumbnails had split from dry air and industrial soap. The hotel restaurant closed at 9, and Mesa Crown sanitation window started at 8:30. So dinner became whatever I could buy at the gas station without needing both hands to eat it. I kept the fuel receipts. I kept the hotel folio. I lost track of 2 deli slips, threw away a coffee receipt soaked with wash water, and never thought to ask for paper when Earl bought tacos and I paid him back in cash. The allowance was a flat daily rate. It had always been a flat daily rate. Marisol began meeting me at the security desk before each shift. She would inspect the work area entry, add whatever permit had changed overnight, and initial the line. On the 7th day, Grant moved our startup window from morning to midnight because Mesa Crown could not stop line 4. On the 8th, he moved it back to 4 in the morning after the night sanitation crew lost a pump. Each change came through an email with the same ending. "Appreciate your flexibility." By the 9th evening, the system was holding flow within 2% of target. The cloudy recovery tank had turned clear enough to see the level sensor through the inspection window. Earl leaned against the wall and watched the trend line settle. "Looks less festive," he said. "That's how you know it's working." Marisol signed the acceptance checklist at 7:16 p.m. Then she walked with me to security, where I wrote my departure time in the final line of the blue log. She took the yellow pencil from me and added her initials. 9 straight, she said. "Go home before we find a 10th day." Back at Hartwell, standing outside Grant's office after the Monday meeting, I run my thumb over the yellow wax still caught beneath my nail. His door is open. He is typing with 2 fingers, fast and hard. I place a printed copy of Hartwell's travel policy on his desk. "Per diem is fixed by destination," I say. "Receipts aren't required." Grant glances at the page but does not touch it. "That policy assumes approved fieldwork. You approved the trip. I approved 5 days. You extended it to 9. I allowed you to remain on site for development purposes after the core installation window. That isn't the same as assigning 4 additional shifts." For a moment, I honestly think I have misheard him. Then he turns his monitor toward me. My Mesa Crown timesheet is open. Days 6 through 9 have been recoded from field commissioning to training unbillable. "You called those shifts professional development? I'm giving you a graceful way to close this. You billed the customer for my time." His expression barely changes, but his right hand leaves the mouse. That is when I know I have touched the part he did not expect me to see. Grant turns the monitor back toward himself. "Billing is not your responsibility. My timesheet is, and I'm correcting it. After Mesa Crown signed the acceptance sheet, his jaw shifts. It is almost nothing, just a small tightening beneath his left ear. I have seen it when a freight company loses a shipment or a customer mentions liquidated damages. You were sent to execute a 5-day commissioning plan, he says. You failed to meet that plan. I gave you latitude to remain and learn from the experience. The parts you approved were wrong. That's exactly the kind of statement that concerns me. It concerns me too. They were 3-inch valves. He sits back. You know what I mean. I do. I also know his office door is still open and Darlene can probably hear us from dispatch. Grant believes in witnesses when he controls the wording. He folds his hands on the desk. I took a chance on you 3 years ago. You had assembly experience and half a controls certificate. Howard said you weren't ready for field work. I finished the certificate because I gave you a schedule that let you finish it. I'm grateful for that. You have an unusual way of showing it. The sentence lands where he aimed it. When I moved into field service, I had been newly divorced, broke enough to know the closing dates on every utility bill, and trying to act as if none of that entered the building with me. Grant approved the overtime that let me pay off the moving expenses. He paired me with patient technicians instead of the ones who treated questions like weakness. Those things mattered. They did not make 4 worked shifts disappear. I'm asking to be paid under the policy, I say. I'm asking you to consider whether $800 is worth damaging how people here see you. The warning is so smooth, I almost admire it. I'll consider that. His face relaxes. He thinks I mean I will drop it. I pick up the travel policy and leave. At the bench, 4 returned variable frequency drives are waiting for me beneath handwritten failure tags. The first tag says, won't turn on. The second says, intermittent issue. The third says, bad. The fourth has a coffee ring and no words at all. Ben walks past carrying the Laurel Springs project binder. He slows. Hey, I didn't ask for this. I know. Grant said the customer wanted somebody more experienced. I look at him. Ben closes his eyes briefly. Yeah, I heard it as soon as it came out. He is 42 and has been with Hartwell 6 years longer than I have. He can rebuild an actuator on a loading dock in sleet, but he avoids programming whenever possible. Calling him more experienced is technically true in the same way calling a forklift taller than me is true. It does not make either one capable of tuning a control loop. I can walk you through the startup files, I say. His shoulders drop. Relief first, shame second. That would help. After lunch? Sure, thanks. He starts away, then turns back. For what it's worth, that receipt thing was garbage. Was it worth saying in the meeting? His mouth opens. What comes out is quieter. Probably. I plug in the first drive and hear its cooling fan scrape the housing. The problem is visible through the vent. A shipping clip was never removed. 5 minutes to diagnose. Another 10 to fix. Grant knows this bench is where he puts people when he wants their hours visible and their work invisible. At noon, I pull up the Mesa Crown project folder to show Ben the commissioning program. My report is still named Ortiz _final, although someone saved a new version at 11:07. The first page has changed, where I wrote, correct valve bodies unavailable at scheduled startup due to supplier sizing discrepancy. The report now says, final installation delayed pending customer piping modifications. My name remains at the bottom. I scroll faster. The sanitation shutdown that Mesa Crown rescheduled at Grant's request is described as restricted customer access. The actuator shipping error has become additional field validation. My 9 days appear in the labor table, but the explanations make every delay belong to Mesa Crown, or to me. Ben leans over my shoulder. Did you write that? No. Maybe Grant was cleaning it up for billing. He cleaned the truth out of it. He checks behind us. Grant's office door is closed now. Save your version somewhere. It's already in revision history. Save it somewhere else. That surprises me. Ben is built from caution. He reads restaurant fire exit maps and refuses to join fantasy football leagues because he does not want a documented gambling profile. For him, suggesting that I preserve evidence feels like shouting in the street. I export the version history to the project's locked records folder, where completed service documents are retained by date. I also print my original report and the edited one. The office printer wakes with an asthmatic clatter. Darlene watches the pages come out. "You planning a bonfire?" she asks. Side-by-side comparison. Those are how bonfires start. She slides the sheets toward me without looking down. Then she lowers her voice. "Payroll's Elaine Wexler, extension 248. Don't email the general expense inbox unless you want Grant answering before they do." I stop gathering the pages. "Did you hear us?" I hear everything. It's the only benefit of being seated under an air vent that hasn't worked since 2019. Why would Grant answer payroll questions? He reviews travel exceptions for service. This isn't an exception. Darlene meets my eyes. Then call Elaine. Elaine Wexler speaks in the careful rhythm of someone who has learned that every casual sentence can become an attachment. "Per diem is a daily allowance," she says. "Meal receipts are not required for standard domestic field assignments. That's what the policy says." Yes. Grant denied all 9 days because I didn't have receipts. A pause, keyboard sounds. "Your report is coded incomplete documentation." Can you see the notes? I can see the coding. Can you see that the trip was 9 days? I see 5 approved assignment days, 3 supplemental development days, and 1 return travel day. Development days? That is how they're coded. I work 12 hours on the 6th day. I don't verify work activity. Who does? Your department director. We sit in silence on opposite ends of a phone line. "What about the return travel day?" I ask. "Does that require meal receipts?" "No." "Then why was it denied?" More keyboard sounds. "It should not have been." "Can you correct it?" I can release 1 day at the destination rate. The remaining days require management approval or a formal expense appeal. How formal? A form, your supporting documents, your manager's response, and review by the finance operations manager. Grant's office door opens. I turn my chair slightly so my back faces him. "Send me the form." Elaine exhales through her nose. "I can send you the link." "That works." "And Lena?" "Yes. Keep your language specific. It is not encouragement. It is better. It is useful." The next morning, $97 appears in my account as an expense correction. I stare at the number while eating toast at Rosa's kitchen counter. She is packing glass containers into an insulated lunch bag. She manages payroll and scheduling for a dental laboratory, which means she spends her days explaining to highly educated people that forgetting to clock out is not a personality trait. "You got some of it," she says. "1 day." Why 1? Payroll could fix the travel day without Grant. So the company's position is that you teleported there, trained for 8 days, and drove home. They admit I drove home. Powerful start. I smile despite myself, then open my credit card app. The hotel deposit has cleared, along with fuel and 9 days of food. My available credit is down to $38. The interest charge posts Friday. Rosa sees my face. "How short?" "I'm fine." "Lena?" $200 until payday. Maybe less. She reaches for her purse. "No, I haven't done anything." "You made the face." "What face?" "The one where your eyebrows become a loan application. I'm not taking your money. We share a refrigerator. If the power goes out, I also suffer." "The power isn't going out." "Then stop staring at your phone like it's holding a weapon." I put the phone face down. Rosa zips her lunch bag. "Do you want to win, or do you want to prove you never needed anybody?" That's manipulative. "I manage payroll. It's a core competency. She leaves $40 under the sugar bowl anyway. I find it after she goes and hate how relieved I feel. At work, Grant's assistant has placed a meeting on my calendar for 8:30, performance documentation. Grant is alone when I enter his office. My expense appeal form sits on his desk. I submitted it less than an hour earlier. "That moved fast," I say. You escalated a routine coaching matter to finance. I appealed an expense denial. You disputed my account of the Mesa Crown assignment. Your account calls 4 shifts training. You've become very focused on terminology. Terminology is how payroll decides whether I worked. He gestures to the chair. I remain standing. Grant opens a document. I was prepared to treat Monday as an emotional response after a difficult trip. Instead, you accessed a controlled project file, exported revision records, and accused management of falsifying a report. I didn't accuse anyone. I attached both versions. You attached an internal draft to a financial appeal. It explains why the days changed classification. It creates confusion outside the department. The edits created confusion. He looks at me for a long time. The gentle tone disappears. This is a written warning for incomplete field documentation, failure to follow the project communication chain, and resistance to supervisory coaching. He pushes the paper across the desk with a pen. I read every line. The warning says I left Mesa Crown without adequate meal documentation. It says my original service report assigned fault before a complete management review. It says my communication has become adversarial and reputationally risky. What does this have to do with my work quality? I ask. Professional judgment is part of work quality. Did Mesa Crown complain about me? This is not about whether the customer likes you. That wasn't my question. His mouth thins. Sign to acknowledge receipt. I write received, not agreed, then sign and date it. He takes the page back. Darlene will keep you on bench work while we evaluate next steps. For how long? That depends on you. Outside his office, Ben is standing beside the copier with a stack of blank paper in his hands. He looks at my face, then at the closed door. What happened? Written warning. For the receipts? For being reputationally risky. That sounds like something a chemical drum says. I almost laugh. Ben does not. He gave me the Mesa Crown report, he says. Told me to finalize it under my name. When? Yesterday afternoon. And? I said I'd review it. I wait. Ben rubs the edge of the paper stack with his thumb. He wants it sent by Friday. My original report is accurate. I know. Then use it. He signs my evaluations, too. There it is. Not betrayal yet, but the room prepared for it. I'm not asking you to fight him, I say. I'm asking you not to put your name on something false. You think there's a difference from where he's sitting? Yes. Ben glances toward Grant's office. I wish I did. For the rest of the day, he avoids my bench. On Thursday afternoon, I find a note from Darlene stuck to the failed drive marked bad. Call Mesa Crown service contact, pressure alarm, Grant tied up. Marisol answers over the plant noise. Tell me Hartwell didn't give you another 9-day vacation, she says. I'm at the office. Good. I have a high differential alarm, but the physical gauges look normal. I walk her through the transmitter screen. The upper range has reset itself to factory default, making normal pressure look dangerous. We correct it in under 4 minutes. Your system's fine, I say. I suspected as much. Earl was preparing to express his opinion with a wrench. That's why computers have passwords. Speaking of things that need correcting, I got a draft service report this morning. My chair goes still. From Grant? From Ben Shaw, copied to Grant. It says our piping modifications delayed final installation. What did you tell them? That the piping was built to the approved drawings. Did you put that in writing? I'm operations manager, Lena. I put what I had for lunch in writing. Across the office, Grant steps out of the conference room. He sees me on the phone. Marisol's voice lowers. The draft also says you were here 5 assigned days and remained 4 more for supplemental testing. I was assigned every shift. I know. How? There is a brief scrape, as if she is moving something across a desk. You signed in and out. Grant starts walking toward me. Marisol, I have to go. Before you do, send me the serial number on the pressure transmitter. I'll open a warranty ticket through the official address. She understands before I explain. An official ticket preserves why we spoke. Grant stops beside my bench just as I hang up. Who was that? Mesa Crown. Pressure transmitter alarm. You're not assigned to customer contact. Darlene routed it to me because you were tied up. His eyes move to the note, then to my open diagnostic screen. Future calls go through me. Then tell Darlene. I'm telling you. He takes the note from the drive and folds it once. That evening, after Grant leaves, I open the archived billing package for Mesa Crown. My access comes from being the commissioning specialist assigned to the project. The folder contains the purchase order, approved scope, time summaries, and customer invoice backup. 9 dates appear under field labor commissioning. 9 daily subsistence charges appear beneath them. Hartwell has billed Mesa Crown for every hour Grant recoded as my training, and every day of per diem he denied me. I print the summary. Behind me, the copier makes its wheezing startup sound. Darlene is putting on her coat. She watches the invoice slide into the tray. Another comparison? She asks. I lift the page. This time, I say, I think it's a fuse. Darlene takes the invoice from me and reads it twice. Put that back in the project file before you leave. I'm allowed to access billing backup. I know. The question tomorrow will be why you accessed it, not whether you were allowed. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't need to. Put it back, attach it to your appeal from your desk, and don't email yourself anything. I look at the copy in my hand. Have you done this before? Watched a manager get interested in the path a fact traveled instead of the fact? She buttons her coat, a few hundred times. I return the original to the folder and scan my printed copy into the expense appeal system. In the comment box, I write, Mesa Crown was invoiced for 9 commissioning days and 9 daily subsistence charges. My payroll record should reflect the same assigned work period. Specific, like Elaine said. At home, Rosa heats tomato soup while I spread documents across the kitchen table. The policy, my timesheet, Grant's edits, the billing summary, my notebook page with his instruction to extend the hotel. Rosa sets a grilled cheese sandwich on the only empty corner. You have created the world's saddest placemat. I'm organizing. You're building a paper fort. It has excellent sightlines. She picks up the altered report and reads both versions. What happens if you let him win? I lose $776. That's not what I asked. I turn the billing summary face down. He gets to decide which parts of my work count after I do them. And if you don't let him? I could lose the job. Rosa sits opposite me. Can you live with that? I don't know. That's allowed. I should know before I push any harder. You already pushed. Now he knows you noticed. I pull the sandwich apart and watch steam escape from the middle. When I got the field position, everybody thought Grant was doing me a favor. Was he? Yes. Rosa waits. That doesn't mean he gets to keep charging interest on it forever, I say. There she is. The next morning, my access to the Mesa Crown folder is gone. Ben still has his. Grant still has his. Darlene can open the schedule, but not the project records. When I click the folder, a gray box tells me to contact my administrator. Grant walks by as I'm reading it. Project access is limited to assigned personnel, he says. I'm the commissioning specialist on the acceptance sheet. You're no longer assigned to closeout. Because I appealed an expense denial? Because your judgment is under review. He keeps walking. At 9, Elaine calls and asks if I can attend a finance operations meeting at 2. Her careful voice is even more careful. Will Grant be there? He is the approving manager. Who else? Martin Bell from finance operations. What should I bring? We have your attachments. That wasn't my question. A pause. Bring whatever lets you answer narrowly. Martin Bell has a face that looks permanently cold. He sits at one end of the small finance conference room with my appeal open on a laptop. Grant sits beside him with no papers at all. Elaine takes the chair nearest the door. Martin begins with the invoice. Grant says this was a fixed-price project. It was, I say, so the customer was not invoiced your actual expenses. The backup lists 9 daily subsistence charges. Grant leans forward. Those are cost allocations used to measure project performance. They are not a direct pass-through. Were they based on the days I was on site? They were based on the planned resources required to close the project. 9 days. Ultimately, yes. Martin looks between us. The billing classification does not automatically determine employee eligibility. I understand. The emails determine that. I slide copies across the table. 4 scheduled changes, each from Grant. Stay through actuator delivery. Return for sanitation window. Report at midnight. Report at 4 in the morning. Grant reads none of them. She had permission to remain, he says. The question is whether those were productive assigned shifts or remediation for an employee who failed to close the work on schedule. The valve bodies were the wrong size, and the actuators were shipped to Oregon. Both issues could have been managed more efficiently. How? That is what coaching is for. Martin rubs his forehead. Elaine says, the denial reason entered was missing meal receipts. Grant turns to her. One factor among several. Meal receipts aren't required, which is why the return day was released. 1 day was released because I called. I say, you denied all 9. Martin asks, do we have customer confirmation of work activity for days 6 through 9? The acceptance sheet is dated day 9. That confirms completion, not each day. I can request the permit records. Grant's chair creaks as he shifts. That would pull the customer into an internal expense dispute, he says. I strongly recommend against creating noise around an account we've spent 2 years stabilizing. For once, he is not exaggerating. Before Grant took over, Hartwell had missed 3 Mesa Crown deadlines in a year. He rebuilt the relationship by answering calls himself and eating the cost of an emergency installation. The plant's upcoming maintenance contract would keep half our field staff busy through winter. Martin closes the laptop halfway. Then I'm not making a determination today. Grant, provide your full assignment record. Lena, do not contact the customer about compensation issues. If operations records arrive through the normal project process, attach them. Grant nods as if they have agreed on something. In the hallway, he lets Elaine reach the elevator before speaking. You're forcing people who know nothing about field work to choose between us. I asked to be reimbursed. You attached internal billing records. They show I was on the project. They show an accounting allocation. You don't know enough about margin management to understand the difference. I know 9 is more than 5. His eyes flatten. You have a talent, Lena. I recognized it early. But talent without judgment becomes expensive. So does shipping the wrong valves. The elevator opens. Elaine stands inside, one hand holding the door. Grant smiles at her and steps back. You first, he says to me. I ride down with Elaine. She watches the numbers over the door. What happens now? I ask. Management responses are due in 3 business days. Does he get to change the denial reason after I appeal? She presses her lips together. Keep your language specific, she says again. At lunch, Howard Beck sits across from me without asking. He is one of our senior technicians, a broad man with silver hair and an impressive ability to get mustard on every shirt he owns. Darlene says you know the per diem policy. I can read it. She says receipts aren't required. They aren't. He chews for a while. Grant denied 2 of my days in Elko last quarter, said my receipts weren't itemized. Did you appeal? Didn't know I could. Tanya Price, our combustion technician, looks over from the next table. He got 3 of mine in January. Howard points his sandwich at her. You said accounting messed that up. I thought they did. They both look at me. There's a form, I say. By the end of the day, Howard and Tanya have requested copies of their denied reports. I never suggest they add them to mine. I don't need to. The policy does that work. Grant calls an unscheduled service meeting the following morning. He stands where he stood while denying my report, except the expense dashboard is gone. Behind him is a photograph of the Mesa Crown recovery system, bright stainless piping beneath fluorescent lights. We are entering a critical renewal period, he says. Customers are evaluating whether Hartwell brings discipline to their sites. That includes technical discipline, schedule discipline, and expense discipline. His gaze travels around the table without resting on me. I've heard concern that recent documentation standards are new or selectively enforced. They are neither. Field employees are expected to maintain records adequate to support every reimbursable cost. Howard raises his hand. Grant looks faintly surprised. Yes? Per diem isn't reimbursement of a specific cost. It's an allowance. It still requires proof of business purpose. Like a site assignment? Among other things. Tanya crosses her arms. What other things? Grant gives them a patient smile. If you have questions about individual reports, bring them to me privately. Howard looks down at the mustard spot on his shirt. I did. You denied it. Darlene coughs into her fist. Ben examines the ceiling. Grant ends the meeting 6 minutes early. That afternoon, Ben appears at my bench carrying 2 coffees. He places one beside the disassembled drive. I sent the report, he says. My stomach tightens. Which version? Yours, mostly. I fixed 2 typos and added the final transmitter range. What about the piping delay? I wrote that the supplied valves didn't match the approved drawings. And the extra days? Assigned commissioning support pending receipt of correct components. I stare at him. He peels the cardboard sleeve from his cup. Grant asked if I was refusing a direct instruction. What did you say? I said I was resolving a documentation discrepancy. That sounds like you. I worked on it. Thank you. Don't make it large. I may pass out. He starts to leave. Ben. He stops. What did Grant do? Nothing yet. The answer arrives 20 minutes later when Darlene moves him off Laurel Springs and onto warranty calls with me. We eat lunch together the next day. Grant's written response to finance comes in Friday morning. He claims days 6 through 9 were optional development, says my access to the invoice backup was inappropriate, and describes Howard's and Tanya's appeals as evidence that I am disrupting expense controls. Attached is an offer. Hartwell will reimburse the remaining 8 days as a one-time exception if I withdraw my formal appeal, accept the written warning without comment, and approve Grant's edited Mesa Crown Service report as the originating technician. He asks me to meet at 4. Grant closes his office door after I enter. This gets you all the money, he says. It keeps the issue inside service, where it belongs. And the warning stays. It's coaching documentation. You remove me from field work because of it, temporarily. And I approve the report saying Mesa Crown caused the delay. You acknowledge management's final version. Why do you need my approval if Ben already sent a report? His nostrils flare. The customer rejected Ben's report. A warm, sharp satisfaction moves through me. What did they say? That's irrelevant. What did Marisol say? She disputed the timeline and requested a closeout meeting. Then the accurate timeline matters. Grant pushes the offer toward me. I'm trying to give you a way back. Take it. The paper waits between us. If I sign, the card gets paid. The interest stops. Laurel Springs or something like it eventually comes back. Grant can tell everyone the dispute was a misunderstanding, and I can help him tell it. I slide the paper back. No. He studies me with something closer to disappointment than anger. Then you should prepare for an outcome neither of us wants. Is that a threat? It's experience. Mesa Crown's meeting request arrives Monday. Marisol wants Grant, Martin from finance operations, Ben and me at the plant on Wednesday to reconcile the final report before contract renewal discussions. Grant tries to remove me from the invitation. Mesa Crown adds me back. He stops at my bench before we leave. You'll answer technical questions only. No payroll, no expense appeal, no commentary about internal decisions. I know how to behave with customers. That is yet to be established. The drive to Mesa Crown takes 4 hours. Grant spends most of it on calls, calmly solving a warehouse shortage, a technician's hotel problem, and a customer's failed pump. Listening to him be useful makes the knot in my chest worse. At the plant, the security guard recognizes me. "Vacation's over," he says. "So I've been told." I reach for the blue binder, but it is not in its usual place. Only the black cord and yellow grease pencil remain on the counter. "Ms. Vega borrowed the log," he says. "Said she needed it upstairs." Grant turns his head. "For what?" he asks. The guard shrugs. "Operations meeting." Marisol meets us in the lobby and leads us up a metal staircase. The glass boardroom overlooks the canning floor where silver cans move beneath us in bright, orderly rivers. There are 4 folders on the table. One is blue. The blue folder is the only one with worn corners. Marisol takes the chair at the head of the table. Grant sits to her right, positioning himself so the canning floor makes an impressive backdrop whenever he speaks. Martin opens his laptop. Ben puts a legal pad in front of him and clicks his pen twice. I sit closest to the door. Earl arrives carrying a stainless travel mug and takes the last chair. Grant looks at him. "I thought this was a commercial closeout." "I represent plant maintenance," Earl says. Marisol slides the first folder toward Grant. "This is the service report Ben submitted. I've reviewed it." "I know. You called me 11 minutes after I rejected it." Grant smiles. "We take customer concerns seriously. Then this should be quick." She opens the report to the valve section. The room is quiet enough that I can hear the fillers pulsing below us, a soft mechanical rhythm beneath the air conditioning. The supplied 3-inch valves did not match our approved 4-inch piping drawings, Marisol says. Hartwell's original report stated that accurately. The revised draft assigned the delay to customer piping modifications. The piping had to be modified to support interim commissioning, Grant says, temporarily at your request, which is what the report says. It says Mesa Crown delayed installation. It identifies site conditions that affected the schedule. Marisol looks at Earl. He opens the second folder and removes the approved drawings, my photographs of the casting numbers, and the packing slip. The site condition was a 4-inch pipe, he says. It remained 4 inches despite our best efforts. Ben makes a small choking sound and turns it into a cough. Grant barely reacts. We're not disputing the initial sizing mismatch. We're discussing the total schedule impact. A strong commissioning specialist should be able to work around component issues. She did, Marisol says. That's why we had temporary spools on day 1. She also required additional time. Because your actuators went to Oregon. Grant looks at me then, quick and cold. Marisol opens the third folder. Freight tracking, email notices, my photos of the temporary installation, the change to the midnight sanitation window, and then the 4 a.m. startup. 2 messages from Grant, ending with "Appreciate your flexibility." Martin stops typing long enough to read the top page. Grant leans back. I'm not interested in relitigating every operational decision. We preserved the startup, kept your executive tour on schedule, and absorbed significant additional cost. I personally located replacement components from 2 states. That was good work, Marisol says. The acknowledgement catches him off guard. She continues. So was Lena's. Grant's expression closes again. Marisol turns to Ben. Your report is substantially accurate. Correct the transmitter range in the appendix. Include the temporary piping authorization and send it back. Ben writes it down. I can do that today. Good. Earl, would you give Ben the permit copy? Earl takes a folded sheet from his shirt pocket and pushes it across the table. The technical review is over in 23 minutes. Marisol closes the first 3 folders. Earl, thank you. Ben, you can coordinate the corrections downstairs. Martin, I know you have another call, but I'd appreciate it if you stayed. Martin nods. Then Marisol looks at Grant. Grant, I'd like you to stay. I assumed I would. Her eyes move to me. Lena, you too. Ben gathers his pad. As he passes behind my chair, his fingers touch my shoulder for half a second. Earl takes his travel mug and follows him out. The glass door closes. Grant places both hands on the table. Before we go further, I need to be clear that Hartwell does not discuss internal employee matters with customers. I haven't asked about an internal employee matter, Marisol says. You requested Lena's attendance after I explained she had been reassigned. I requested the commissioning specialist who performed the work. This meeting should remain focused on deliverables. It is. Marisol reaches for the blue folder. The black cord trails from it. At the end is the yellow grease pencil, worn flat on two sides. She lays the contractor site log between us. Grant looks at it, then at her. Why is that here? You described 4 of Lena's days as supplemental testing that wasn't directed by Hartwell. Since those dates also appeared in the disputed service report, I verified our site record. She opens to my first entry. My name leans slightly uphill across the page. Beneath it are the company, work area, permit number, sponsor, arrival time, and departure time. Marisol's initials sit in the last column. She turns the pages slowly. Day 2, 5:37 a.m. to 6:21 p.m. Cabinet energization and input verification. Day 3, 5:44 a.m. to 7:08 p.m. Temporary valve commissioning and active maintenance permit, the one that stopped sanitation from starting while Earl and I had the filter housing open. Day 4, 6:02 a.m. to 5:31 p.m. Replacement body inspection. Day 5, 5:49 a.m. to 8:14 p.m. Actuator delivery delayed. Dry sequence testing authorized. Then the day's grant called development. Day 6, 5:41 a.m. to 7:26 p.m. Correct valve installation, permit 4418. Day 7, 3:52 p.m. to 2:17 a.m. Line 4 sanitation window and wet startup. Day 8, 3:46 a.m. to 6:09 p.m. Pump recovery, loop tuning, and production validation. Day 9, 4:03 a.m. to 7:19 p.m. Final performance test and customer acceptance. Every assigned shift is there. Every entry carries a permit number and Marisol's initials. Grant reads without moving. Martin rotates the folder slightly so he can see it better. A site sign-in only establishes presence, Grant says. Marisol takes a sheet from the back pocket of the folder. These are the access records tied to the permits. Lena's badge opened the mechanical room, control room, and line 4 sanitation gate during each shift. The control system audit records her technician login on all 9 dates. She places another sheet beside it. These are the work orders Earl closed against those permit numbers. Another. These are the alarm acknowledgments and sequence changes. The final page is the acceptance checklist I watched her sign at 7:16 on the 9th evening. Grant taps one line in the log. On day 7, she arrived at 3:52. That was not a full day. She left at 2:17 the next morning, Martin says. I can read, Martin. Then read the next column, Marisol says. The sponsor column lists her name all 9 times. I approved every shift, she says. Your emails assign the changing windows. Your customer invoice includes all 9 days. If Hartwell has an internal definition under which those shifts were voluntary, it wasn't shared with the person who had to authorize her presence in our plant. Grant's voice stays level, but color has risen above his collar. The additional work was required because the commissioning plan was not completed efficiently. Your correct equipment wasn't available until day 6. A more experienced specialist might have reduced the overrun. Marisol looks at me. It is the first time anyone in the room has invited me to speak. I could tell them about the split skin beside my nails, the dinners eaten over a gas station trash can, or the hotel clerk asking me 3 mornings in a row whether I was finally checking out. I could explain the card balance, the lost Laurel Springs hours, and the warning Grant put in my file after I asked for what the policy promised. Those things are true. They are also unnecessary here. Those were the shifts I was told to cover, I say. Marisol nods once. Martin closes his laptop and puts both hands on top of it. Grant, did you provide these assignment emails with your response to finance? I provided the project schedule. The original 5-day schedule? The approved baseline. Did you provide the changes you sent Lena? They were field coordination, not formal schedule revisions. Martin looks at the open log. You also coded 4 days as unbillable training while your project backup allocated those days to commissioning. I have already explained that the invoice was fixed price. Yes, I'm asking about the internal project coding. Grant's chair shifts back an inch. This is becoming an accounting review based on a customer log that has no context for our employee development practices. Marisol caps her pen. You're right about one thing. Your employee practices aren't my business. Our vendor records are. Mesa Crown will approve the invoice when the report reflects the actual cause and sequence of the delay. Our maintenance renewal will require a different Hartwell operations contact. That costs him more than my appeal ever could. Grant knows it immediately. His face does not break. He turns to Martin. We should discuss the commercial implications privately. We will, Martin says, after we preserve copies of these records. Marisol has already prepared them. The drive back begins in silence. Grant sits in the front passenger seat. Martin drives, and I sit in the back with the blue of the site log still floating behind my eyes. Grant answers 2 calls in his normal voice. He finds a replacement pump seal in Sacramento. He authorizes a hotel extension for Howard without asking for a receipt. Halfway home, Martin pulls into a rest area. Grant gets out first and walks toward the vending machines. Martin remains behind the wheel. Finance operations will place a hold on the Mesa Crown project record, he says. Do not access or alter it. I already lost access. He glances at Grant through the windshield. You'll receive instructions tomorrow. Until then, keep working your assigned duties. Bench work. For now, it is not justice. It is a process beginning, which feels less satisfying and more dangerous than I expected. Grant returns with a bottle of water. Before he gets in, he opens my door. You could have resolved this in my office, he says quietly. You wanted me to sign something that wasn't true. I offered to make you whole. You offered me my own money in exchange for my name. His fingers tighten around the door frame. You think today made you look loyal to that customer. Customers forget technicians the minute a system runs. The people you work for remember. So do logs. He closes the door harder than necessary. Martin asks both of us to work from home the next morning while Hartwell reviews the project. By noon, Elaine has sent me copies of my expense history and written warning. Howard and Tanya are asked for their travel records. Ben is interviewed about the report revisions. Darlene produces the schedule changes from dispatch. The question spreads sideways before they move upward. Why had Grant entered missing receipts as the denial reason when receipts were not required? Why had he changed that reason after the appeal? Why did the report blame customer piping after purchasing records? Showed he approved the mismatched valves? Why were several technicians' allowances denied while the same days remained in project cost backups? The answer is not one dramatic theft. It is a habit. Grant has been trimming field expenses to protect service margins during a difficult quarter. Sometimes the denials corrected real mistakes. Sometimes they saved Hartwell from sloppy claims. Enough of them targeted legitimate travel that the pattern survives even after his reasonable decisions are separated out. A week passes before Hartwell releases the remaining $776, my overtime for the 4 disputed days, and the interest charged to my card. Elaine calls it a corrective reimbursement. Did you calculate the interest? I ask. Rosa did. My cousin called you? She sent a spreadsheet. I close my eyes. I'm sorry. It was color-coded. That sounds like her. My warning is removed the same afternoon. Laurel Springs is already finished, so the lost overtime stays lost. Hartwell cannot give me back the week Grant used to make coworkers wonder whether I was unstable, or the month I spend checking every room before I speak. Howard and Tanya receive their denied allowances. 2 more technicians submit old reports. Hartwell rewrites the travel policy into 1 page of language that even Howard admits he understands. Grant loses his quarterly bonus and approval authority over field expenses. Mesa Crown's account moves to another director. For several weeks, he remains in the building as a commercial estimator, his office door closed while boxes accumulate against one wall. He stops at my bench on his last Friday in operations. "You got what you wanted," he says. "I got paid for work I did." Same thing. No, he studies the repaired drives stacked behind me. "You're good at the technical part, Lena. Don't mistake winning one dispute for knowing how companies survive." I don't. That seems to bother him more than an argument would. He resigns 3 months later. Hartwell offers me the field lead position Grant once said I needed more judgment to earn. I ask whether field warnings can be reviewed outside the service chain and whether travel changes will be confirmed in writing. When the answer is vague, I decline. Martin looks startled. "You wanted this position." I still do. I want the version with rules. It takes another month, but Hartwell agrees. I accept after Elaine sends the policy herself. On my first trip back to Mesa Crown as designated commissioning lead, the security guard pushes the blue log through the slot before I can reach for it. The yellow grease pencil is worn almost to the black cord. Marisol comes up behind me carrying a new one. "Retiring old equipment," she says. "Did Earl approve that?" He requested a failure analysis. She unties the flattened pencil and lays it in the desk drawer. Then she fastens the new one to the cord. It drags across the paper, stiff and bright, as I print my name on the first clean line.